All right. So right off the top, an atheist from one of these atheist groups, and I was inviting people. He said he guaranteed this was not going to be a civil discussion. So let's try to prove him wrong.
All right. All right.
Let's start it good. Do you having are you having coffee? Were you drinking coffee?
I was, but I'm finished, man. I'm all ready to go.
Before I had this cup, my brother asked me how many hours uh, Korea was ahead of America, and I said 7 years. I was like, what
Damn.
the hell?
That's a
I
lot of
know, I know.
hours.
That's a lot of hours. I don't want to do the
Yeah.
math on that one. But
Yeah.
interesting topic here. Just before we start off, what have been kind of like some of your general ideas about the election 2024 so far?
I mean, yeah, it's just what it is for me what's eye opening is the different values people have, and that's really what's bringing the division is because people claim different values, and I always wonder, are these values are artificially generated from social media? Like how much
Or AI?
influence, or AI, like the algorithm, like how much influence does the internet have on people's values? You know what I'm saying? Um, because it seems like some topics that are hot button issues were not such hot button issues just a year ago. Like they're all brand new and brought to us on a plate and platter by
Hmm.
corporate media, and then everybody jumps on and everybody's outraged, like manufactured outrage.
That is a very interesting way to put it, Scott. Actually, just a heads up, house cleaning. If anyone would like to join in for a civil discussion, uncivil discussions will get you an automatic boot here. So I am fine to disagree. I tell Scott all the time I want more pushback, but it has to be done respectfully. And Scott, you liked one of my posts on Facebook where I said, look, regardless what side of the political spectrum you land, one thing we can agree on is that um, one, traditionally there's been about three presidential debates, but this time around there was only one between the two major candidates. So that's already hurting right there that the debate have gone down. Two, Kamala, for whatever reason, am I saying that right? Kamala, look
I don't know
right.
how to say it.
Okay, Harris.
Kamala.
It's Harris. I can
Yeah,
pronounce Harris.
Harris. Yeah.
That's easy enough. Okay, so Harris also declined to come to the Al Smith dinner this year, which is, I think is one of the most beautiful things about America. That look, regardless of whatever side of the political spectrum you fall, that the candidates can come together for a like cause and roast each other, and have
Hmm.
fun tonight, raise money for a good cause. That I think is so essential in the democratic process. So I don't. I'm sure she had her reasons or whatever, but that's just that's we're not going in the right direction if that's what's happening. Like and Trump set a really bad precedent for this. I must say that by not going to the White House Correspondents' journalist dinner,
Hmm.
um, that's not the right direction we should be going. What do you think what do you think about that?
I think that's a good point that you're making because it shows engagement and interest and purpose and intention. And a lot of people, unfortunately, a lot of people like Trump because he doesn't give a crap. Like I was watching a video yesterday, like a little, how they go and somebody will go in public and with a microphone to a Trump
Hmm.
rally and talk to people, and asking somebody, what do you really like about, like, what's the main thing? Because he just doesn't give a s. He doesn't care.
Give a
And
shit. Go ahead.
yeah, he, does,
There's,
he doesn't give a shit. And he
hold on. I, I, I don't care if we're going to lose out on the $2 of revenue for these talks because I'd rather unfilteredly speak the truth, about stuff.
right,
So yeah,
right.
please
And that's
express
what he
yourself.
said. He said that I don't really give a shit, or he doesn't really give a shit, and that's what I like about him. Like he thumbs his nose at the media, he thumbs his nose at tradition and all the things that a president is expected to do and speak a certain way. He doesn't care. He's like he talks shit, He's mad funny. He tells it like it is. He stands up for our values, even if they're unpopular. And that's who we need in our corner. Somebody who, and then another person at a Trump rally said, well, or not a Trump rally, it was actually just a citizen on the street,
Hmm.
and asked her, what is it about Trump you like? And she says, well, as a Christian, I really don't like Trump as a
Hmm.
president, but I'm going with the lesser of the two evils. And a
Right.
lot of
Right.
people are kind of opting out to go with the lesser of the two evils. Like, they understand January 6th, they
Hmm.
understand that. But the thing is that, why are you going to put someone 10 times more evil than Trump in? You know what I'm saying? So those are
Well,
good points.
I was at a mixer this Friday night for I guess this rapper. He's making some CD here in Korea. He's an Arabic rapper, but one of the guys from like England, he asked me who am I voting for, and I'm like, okay, let me get this straight. Uh, the difference between, all right, we have a taker. All right,
Uh,
Mage. Mage, yeah, just let me finish this point, Mage,
sure.
and we do got a Kamala Harris supporter.
Oh,
So
cool,
this is in
I'm
between.
not
cool.
sure if I'd necessarily say I
Oh,
support, but I
voter.
did vote for her. Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
let me finish this point, and then I'll ask you something, Mage. But so he says, "Who am I voting for or supporting?" And I'm like, "Oh, let me get this straight. Do I want to be hit with a closed hand or an open hand?" I mean, because that's really the best argument I've been hearing out of the Kamala side is, I'm going to be an open hand punch to your face, where this guy's going to be a close-handed hit to the face. So this has always been my issue with politicians who engage in mudslinging and hit pieces is that that's the best argument you're making is vote for me. I'm not as evil as that guy, and that's like that. That's fine if you want to do that, but don't expect me to get excited or contribute financially or donate to your in whatever way to your cause. So
Hmm.
sometimes you do have to go with the lesser of two evils, and I believe that is what Mage is doing. So Mage, can you give your case for what you're doing?
I mostly voted more for Walston and Harris, honestly.
Hmm.
Because he's from your state, right?
No, he's not from my state. I hate his values. I hate the stuff he did in his state,
All right.
and
So,
I want if I can't get somebody like that as president, hey, I'll take second place.
but I'm just curious about this. Do you believe it's a lesser of two evils?
Uh, ultimately in this one, I suppose, yeah. I mean, since we're going unfiltered on and referring to these people, well, like I said, I wouldn't. And I wasn't about to vote for the fraudulent felon rapist, since he might also be a traitor to the country.
Alleged? I mean, I think we do have to use the word alleged because I'm not
Nope.
sure. Yeah.
Those first three things are not alleged. The last
Hmm.
Uh,
one is.
has that been adjudicated in one way or the other against
Yes,
him?
he has been convicted for 34 felonies. He was found liable for sexual assault. Oh, and yeah, he has done fraudulent business practices.
Hmm. See, I
Example of that is Trump University was a fraud.
Oh yeah.
that we'd have to agree with. We'd have to definitely agree with that one. Uh, as far as the sexual one, I'm not exactly entirely. I mean, was it settled civilly or was it?
Yeah. He's actually right about that. The jury did find Trump liable for sexual abuse and awarded his accuser like $5 million.
Mm, okay,
And there have been other many more accusations on top of that, but I don't think you've really gone through all the way through court. Some of it got settled out of court.
right. Well, I was just clarifying that because even the case with Diddy, I mean, if you strapped a bomb to me and my family and asked me to make a bet about what I think his guilt is, I would pretty easily be able to make a decision on that what I think. But on the other hand, it's like legally criminally speaking, you have to say alleged in a situation like Diddy because it hasn't been adjudicated yet. Afterwards we can go ahead and say what's the case,
Oh yeah.
but I don't really, I'm not entirely up to date on everything because I'm in America. I'm not in America. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll give alleged on the trader part because he wasn't. That was then going to courts. That was he possibly he violated the Logan Act.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that one is alleged. That's
Hmm.
why I say might.
Right.
Well, a lot of hot button issues right now. I think one of the main ones is immigration. I don't think that's manufactured. I think that's been for years now. People have been divided over immigration and abortion and issues like that. So, Mage, where do you come down on immigration? Is that something that?
Wait, hold on.
Mhm.
I do want to. We'll get into that one. You're jumping the gun a little bit because I do
Okay,
want to just set a couple of other groundwork work
gotcha.
things, and then we will talk very specifically about some of these major issues. So I will be interested to give your opinion as an immigrant in another country. But I do want to say, okay, so just very, if you could, Mage, if you could tell me what you find so appealing about Waltz, um, I'm
Well,
interested.
let's see here. I like how he's handled his healthcare. He's handled feeding kids in classrooms, for example, is one of his own and big examples. They call him tampon and malts. Well, that was actually a good thing he did. Because that it was providing free transfer funds and hygiene project next to the students who needed them for free. You know that bill did not include putting them in boys' bathrooms. If they did go into boys' bathrooms, that's on the school, not Waltz. That was not in the bill he signed.
Well, hold on.
Hmm.
We'll get into the very specifics about that, but I will say this as an educator, one of the things I saw him criticize the most about, which ironically was taking kids to China. I was so pro in favor of that because there was a time in which United States and China were in a pretty big, you know, in the whole Cold War and just taking different sides of like Korea. And Korea is a classic example of United States and China taking two opposite sides and fighting it out on a battlefield. But then you had some events, um, even under Nixon, where he started to open stuff up. And one of the first things they did was playing this table tennis against each other. And that was a whole Forrest Gump, like, that's actually is a legitimate political backdrop of that story. But anyway, having people go back and forth and exchanging ideas and language and culture, I think it's really good. It's a really good starting step to opening up dialogue. So, like, major kudos in that regard. But and also too, I think the thing, if you are a teacher and you're not, you haven't done this a career politician your whole life, you're just probably more down to earth than your average person in politics. So I really appreciate that fact about him.
Hmm.
That's and that's
Yeah, I like personally. I like people that I can relate to. I mean, like I said, this is all really comes down to values, and it's really hard to change people's values. Like people oftentimes argue outside of a point. Like they'll argue about immigration, but it'll be about arguments like, well, it isn't true that she was the immigration czar or the border czar. It
mhm.
isn't true that all these immigrants did X, Y, and Z and eat cats and dogs and all this kind of stuff. And
We do eat
they're
dogs in
missing.
Korea. It's
Yeah,
pretty good.
I think it's okay. And the thing about that is when people argue outside of the point, we're not getting to the issue. I think what a lot of leftists and progressives really feel is that there should be open borders. I think if they're
Mhm.
honest,
No,
they'll go ahead and just, or at least, I mean, not every one of them. I know a few that say open borders at work that I work with. So I know some do. But if I guess the more conservative ones would say, well, we just need it to be really easy for them to get into the country. Like
we would
we
need a
shouldn't
path.
be so
They would need a
stringent.
pathway.
Right.
Yeah,
They,
it's uh oh.
Oh, sorry,
hello.
sorry. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
And
I press
It,
enter
yeah,
and
it'd be
somehow.
saying you need a pathway to citizenship is would really be the argument, and
So
whether it needs to be easy or hard, that's up for debate.
right,
Hmm.
and
right. And
see,
I do. Hold on, I
go ahead.
really do want to give my opinion on this one,
Yeah.
but I don't want to talk about immigration quite yet. I kind of just want to talk about some of the candidates, just some of their
Oh, okay.
background stuff. Um, specifically, okay, so specifically with that guy Waltz. Okay, Waltz. He seemed like certainly out of all the candidates, and I'm not even sure how relevant this is. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if this is relevant to a political debate, but he seems out of all the candidates a person I would most likely want to go out for a beer with. I would put him number one, JD Vance number two. I'm kind of biased to. I actually kind of really like JD Vance, only for the fact that he's married to an Asian and he has half Asian kids. That's something I can really relate to, being married to a Korean and having a half Korean daughter. So there's that. He seems more personable. Then I would put Trump number three, who I'd want to have a beer with, and Kamala. I mean, and this has nothing to do whether or not they're a good candidate or not. Just the kind of person I'd want to sit down and have a talk with, because the thing that's been most annoying and most frustrating, hearing interviews with her, is how much she's not willing to answer questions. It's like if you ask someone a question, I expect to hear the answer to that question. I don't expect to hear your biography. I don't expect to hear about the other person, what the other person does. I want to hear what your response is. So that's something that would be very frustrating, over a beer. It depends how many beers you've had. If I've had like 10 beers, then maybe I'll find that interesting. But what are your thoughts on that, Mage, about her unwillingness to answer questions directly?
Yeah, that's it. That definitely is a problem with her. I see her as largely as a nothing burger.
Hmm.
She's finger in the wind. Okay, let's see. We go that way. Okay, that's basically her in a nutshell, from what I can tell. She
And
doesn't she doesn't seem to really want to stand for anything in particular. And in fact, even some experts have even said that about her, that they can't really pin down any one thing that she actually stands for.
She's against fracking.
Well, even that, no, even that during when she was in the vice presidential debate, it was all for fracking.
Exactly. It.
So
I think
she's
last year was like a record-breaking year for domestic production of natural gas,
yes,
which
yes,
you know what I'm saying, and
yes,
she was
yeah,
all
we,
for it.
yep.
but okay, let's just take that issue one in particular, because this is seen something as a negative about people who flip flopping or changing their positions. To me, that's a sign of strength, though. If you're willing to evaluate information and to change your mind, that when I hear
Uh,
people, hold on, let me finish. When I hear people criticizing people about changing their policies or their ideas, I'm like, that is a sign of someone who I would likely want to support, because I have changed virtually every last political position. I've changed at least two or three times myself, because you get more information, you have more life experiences, and it might genuinely change the way you see the world. So that I think is one of the weakest criticisms that you can get, not only for her but any politician.
uh,
Mitch,
there's a difference between reevaluating and changing in your position, and then just doing the finger in the wind wherever things are going, and changing things and flip flopping.
what do you mean by finger in the wind? Can you explain that?
Let's see how where are the basically where's the demographics going for me,
Uh,
which will get me the more votes, which will get me the more
mm,
popularity. Okay, I'm gonna go in that direction.
a populist, then a populist.
Yeah, instead of okay, I evaluated the situation, I've looked at
Okay,
it, and yeah, okay, I've changed my mind because the evidence says I should go this direction. Big difference.
Scott.
Yeah, I see it the same way. Like it's kind of tricky. Like for us normal folk, we take time to do what we call slow thinking about things and change our mind over time regarding certain issues, and we have good reasons for it that we can outline, that we can
Mm,
lay out for people. Whereas Kamala, she changed her mind in like a matter of months. Like as soon as she got
Mm.
elected, I mean, first she was all about anti-fracking all the way up till the election. When she was nominated vice president, and Biden was, became for the fracking, which he was kind of guilty of that too. I think he was arguing against fracking at one point, but he changed his mind. And I think that what this kind of tells me, it possibly, is that regardless of who's really in office, they're all kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
Well, one thing I do have to give him credit for,
Oh,
at
hold
least.
on, Mitch. You gotta let people finish here. Scott, can you finish your point, please?
I thought you were
oh yeah,
finished.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, almost done. I was just gonna say that, um, people can change their mind, and that's a noble thing. It's absolutely a noble thing to change your mind and
Hmm.
stand up for something. But in this case, when it came to the fracking, at least on this issue, I think that was done for political reasons and for pressure and for fitting in
Mm,
to her
mm,
new role. I mean,
mm.
you got to think about it. She can't just be against the president's, stances and policies. She wouldn't make a good vice president. She has to go
Interesting.
along with what's going on.
Yeah, that is a
Mitch,
thing with
good.
the. That was a thing with though. At least I will give them. They haven't been trying to frack in national parks as Trump attempted to do.
Yeah.
As far as that, I have one very simple opinion, and that is to every politician is to go frack yourself.
Mhm.
Go out there and do it yourself. Go frack yourself.
Yeah, man.
No, that was the point of what Trump was saying about Liz Cheney. People were saying that he threatened Liz Cheney, but like you didn't even need to hear the whole context of what he was saying to understand the point he was actually making, which is these politicians would be a lot less eager to go to war if you were to put a gun into their hands and to go say, you go fight this war, or let's send your son to go fight this war. They'd be a lot less liberal about wanting to start a war. So, one thing I do want to talk about is presenting the other side accurately because Scott, I had mentioned this point to you the other day about wanting to steelman someone's argument because if you can defeat their argument at its strongest, it shows that you've done a really good job to, that you, first of all, you understand their position.
Mhm.
Two is that you don't need to attack the weakest sides of their position. That shows that your side is weak. You want to attack the strongest side so that you can show the fault in the other side and that your side is superior.
Right.
So that's I've seen this from both. This is not particular to either side that I've seen this, but Mage, what are your thoughts about the egregious levels of straw manning from both sides? And we're about to get into the actual
Uh,
topics here very shortly. So I just
it's
wanted
very,
to lay some
it,
foundational framework here.
it's very difficult to avoid, especially with all the misinformation coming from really both sides on the whole matter. You can miss one little detail, and that can throw your whole argument off. And
Mhm.
then you also have the people who are doing it intentionally too.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a really popular thing to kind of straw man each other, because I mean that's how you win political points. And the thing is, as soon as you start telling lies, as soon as you start telling lies, um, it's gone tomorrow. Then the topic has already changed, and you've already
Mm.
won your points. So they can just
Mm.
kind of keep
You
going and
can't
keep going, lying and exaggerating and straw manning, just to make those political points for right now. Because tomorrow we're on to something else, so it doesn't even matter.
Mm. That's an interesting point. Hey, I do want to ask both you guys a perspective on this. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this because I know my side as a Christian. I do want to say this: being in these atheist groups, people just positively assume that I'm a Trump supporter, and I'm like, I've never given 1 ounce of support or endorsement to Trump. In fact, everything I've said on the matter has been that this guy's created like a idolatry amongst Christians. And I've consistently said that people should not idolize him or support him blindly the way that they do. And furthermore, bigger is that politics is a matter of, money and power and control. And so to Christians to get overly involved in this issue is it's a big waste of time and money as Christians. But people just automatically assume that you're a Christian and you're Republican or Trump supporter. So why is it that inside of the cult of atheism you find so many people who are like diehard Kamala supporters? I'm curious about this, Mage.
Well, you're going to find a lot of people who tend to lean left, and those who lean left tend to vote Democrats.
But
Pretty
why
much
though?
as simple as that.
I get it, but why?
Well, it's because usually the people's values tend to become more progressive and left leaning when they become atheists.
But this community is widely seen as being like tolerant, right? They put a lot of emphasis on tolerance, correct?
Well, yeah,
But they don't tolerate if you have a different political view on this topic. So what's the deal with that though? That's kind of the
I
point.
that one's a mystery even to me. I mean,
Scott? Oh, sorry.
me, I say, vote for whoever you want. Whoever, even if it's a third party, go for it. And I voted for third parties myself too. If you don't like them, go for it.
Scott, Mage is one of the good atheist cultists. I will say that. He has a very open mind. I love talking to him. Oh, by the way, we eat dog in Korea. We do not eat wolf, so you're safe here.
Okay.
Totally safe amongst me.
Wolf would
This is
taste terrible anyway.
safe
Yeah,
space here.
kind of gamey.
Scott, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I noticed that a lot of atheists are very left leaning politically. Those things just go together, but it's not unanimously like that. Like I don't consider myself like a Democrat or liberal leaning. I'm kind of like in the middle, but I know a lot of folks that are
Oop.
I'm here. Just keep going.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
they can call themselves conservatives, and they also identify as atheists. There's a lot out there, and a lot of these sort of people don't really engage a lot with with the whole God topic for some reason. I think because I think there's a certain mentality with the left, which is like, how you with the far right you have God's little soldiers that are fighting for God's will and God's morals. Then you've got progressives who are fighting for progress, and they're fighting for
Um, is that you or me?
that's me.
Okay.
But they care a lot about people's feelings. They're very. I think that the left, people leaning towards the left, something that's kind of correlated is this very empathetic soul. They're very feel sorry for others. They have a lot of feel sorry forism going on, whereas people on the right are more stoic, and they're kind of like, who cares? Like even about the abortion.
Hmm. Yeah, I tend to see a lot of the right tend to operate on the "f you, I've got mine."
Yes,
Mm.
yes, yes, they do. And and they can say that there's they'll give you a reason why they think it's okay.
Cutting it out a lot there.
Is that Scott or is that me?
It's Scott.
Yeah, Scott, you're fading in and out, man. Maybe you might want to go kick rocks or try to reboot your computer or whatever
Sorry
you're
about that.
calling from. You're
Yeah,
good.
I need.
Oh,
I'll probably reboot my computer real quick.
yeah, that's fine.
All right, I can
Yeah,
keep talking here.
So, yeah,
yeah. Go
so
ahead.
okay, Mage, you have another point? And then
Uh,
we're gonna get to the contentious part of this.
yeah, I suppose I can add to. I've noticed a lot of people on the left tend to do the lesser of two evil voting, seeing as obviously seeing Democrats as the lesser of two evils usually,
Hmm.
and just so talking about how they're going to vomit up a vote, and then, but on the same token, they also start arguing how great it and trying and prop up the Democrat vote, and while they're saying how they're just vomiting out that vote. It's really weird how they carpent ah yeah I can't pronounce the word for now for some reason.
What does the word mean?
Or to car for some reason I cannot get this word out for some
They
car.
only tolerate obedience. I really like that, Al. That's a very interesting thing. The way that I say it about and which is why I refer to atheism as a cult. They tolerate you as long as you agree with them. If you don't agree with them, then that's a different story altogether. So the thing is, I'm fine to agree to disagree on some stuff and to say maybe I'm not the most informed on this topic and I need more information. But to just say you have to agree with me or you're racist, bigoted person or whatever, that's a very, very dishonest way of reasoning. And I mean,
Okay, you got the
we're all we're all on a journey here, so let's just try to help each other along the way. And that being said, I do want to jump into the biggest
oh.
point of contention it seems in this debate, which is this whole election cycle, which has been abortion. So, can you guys give me your thoughts on this one?
Hmm.
Want to start?
Go ahead, Mage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
you
for it.
go
Oh, me.
ahead.
All right. Well, I think the Roe versus Wade was actually the compromise. So getting rid of that, basically, he puts it into a free for all. And we've seen in already the backlash with that with a number of cases, such as a 10-year-old old who had their incestuous rape a baby and they had to go to another state to get the abortion. And
Hmm.
I just recently came across another example of somebody who developed a brain tumor, and because of that they wouldn't be able to carry the kid that they had become pregnant with to term. It would have the kid just was not going to survive. If she was likely not going to survive, but yet because of the regulations, and she would still have to carry that to term. And we're seeing lots of these kind of situations over and over and over. In fact, if maybe see if I can even get a name here to one of these. Let's see here.
If anyone wants to throw in their 2 cents, right there,
Yeah, I would
Scott.
say that. Yeah, I would say that. For me, I think that I understand the principle behind state putting in the state's hands and all of that. You know, states' rights. I'm a big states' rights person. But at the end of the day, in 2023, a fifth of all recorded abortions were from women who had to travel out of state to get an abortion, right?
Mm.
And that's double the number in 2020. So a lot of inconvenience and a lot of problems visited upon these women because of that law, because of doing away with that, right? And if you value, you know, if part of your values is the health of women and helping them through a hard time, even if you want to argue they made a bad decision, because a lot of people say, well, why is it our problem? No one asked these women to do what they did. No one
Hmm.
asked these men to do that. This was mutual consent. I had nothing to do with it, so why should my tax money have to bail them out for their bad decisions, right?
Interesting.
And if your value is money and your little tax money that you're paying taxes, you've got a point. But if your value is actually human beings and the well-being of people and unborn children, if that's really your value, then I think you wouldn't be against destroying Roe versus Wade in that case. Just depends
Scott,
on your value.
that's a
And I
really
could
that's a
and I
really
could
good
also
point, Scott. Thank you
And I
for
can
it.
also point out that the 10-year-old's incest rape baby wasn't exactly I call consensual.
Oh,
Yeah,
rape
obviously.
baby, exactly. Exactly. That's
And
another thing.
and
So
the one with the brain tumor who couldn't carry the term was named. Her name was Caroline. I think it's important we put names to some of the to
Hmm.
ones we can.
Yes, yes.
well, thank you for that. Okay, so a couple of things I do want to say. Uh, the making like abortion illegal for me, in my opinion, is not the best route to go because like South Korea has gone down that route, and they one of the reasons that they have the lowest birth rate in the world, and there was a while there they were sending out, they were just adopting all their kids out, and uh, because there's a stigma, there's social stigma about having an unwed child here. So if a woman does get pregnant, they'll most likely either get the abortion or give it up for adoption. And so what happens though is so you have either that, so just children are being raised in orphanages here or being sent to another country, which is very traumatic for the kids here because I know a lot of people who've had that happen to them. Two, because they don't adopt their own kind, by the way. That's just a side note. So they send them out to other countries. But the other side of that is that what you just force the woman to do is to go into back alleys here, which is what happens. They'll just do
Hmm.
this. So it's not in an actual alley, but they'll get them done by other means, and so that's the bigger issue right there. So, um, because it's not like you're gonna say, oh, don't have abortions. Oh, okay, our bad. We're not gonna have
Yeah,
any more abortions.
you make it more unsafe.
Yeah, exactly. So that
And you do hear yourself though. There's a presumption that people are just gonna never take responsibility for their actions, which maybe you have a point because there's just a lot of people that are going to go get pregnant on purpose,
I would
and
all.
I think
Sorry,
oh,
and I've
Mate,
noticed this a lot.
you gotta let people finish, please.
sorry.
Yeah, like I know a lot of women who even said it that they have kids just to collect a check, like a
Mm,
business. There's a
mm,
lot of that going on. A lot of that going, especially in the inner cities, man. Um,
mm.
now
Capacity.
that's not good on so many levels. That's not good.
Mhm,
Now, making abortion against the law forces these people to make a decision. Either you're going to do it unsafely or just start being responsible and not having kids out of wedlock or whatever, or at least until you're able to take care of your children.
mhm.
Um, so that's the upside to that is that it does force self responsibility on people. And but me personally, as far as whether it's a moral argument like it's painted out to be, I don't really see it that way because for me, and I am an atheist. Maybe if I believed in the Christian God, my view would change. But as an atheist, I would say that you know life isn't that important. I hate to say that, but sometimes life isn't that important. On the other hand, it's not good to it's good to have a well populated country, right?
Mhm.
I'm a pragmatic person, so I always look for the pragmatic value of things. But I don't think we're in a danger of losing people. Like I don't think that we're like Europe where people are, you know, population is dropping, or in Japan or whatever the country is where population is going down because
We
of
got Mexicans
atheism.
to take care of it, so
That's
you're
right.
safe. You're good, man. We got
Hot
you. We
blooded.
got you.
Mm-hmm.
Mate, go ahead.
Okay. I would argue that abortion is taking responsibility.
Yeah, it
Mm,
is. It is in a way.
You happen to inadvertently you get pregnant and you didn't expect it. The condom breaks, whatever,
mhm.
or you can't handle taking care of that kid. A lot of times people who can't handle giving it up for adoption, and having the abortion is the responsible thing to do in those situations.
That's a harsh reality to say as a Christian, but I genuinely believe that, man. I mean, and anyone who says otherwise, hear me out for 2 seconds. My niece's aunt was 9 months pregnant. The dad of the father of this baby killed her, cut the baby out of her stomach, and then killed the baby. So thank God
Jeez.
Almighty that kid did not get to be raised by that dude. I think he was out of his mind on methamphetamine at the time. But anyway, that just it's a reality. It's a brutal reality that some people should not be parents. Like Scott. Scott should definitely not be raising kids, man. So I'm gonna just throw that out there. So that's an interesting point about taking responsibility. Thank you for making that point, Mage. All right, here's another one that's interesting. Um, and Scott and I we've discussed this topic before, um, and I've said this like and I know our Mage. I already know your position. You can make it known, and then we can discuss this. But if you support trans rights and if you support LGBT rights, like I have a lot of respect for that, because these are marginalized. Uh, it's a marginalized community, and there's also a lot of lot of mental health issues and depression and suicide. I'm just gonna say the word instead of unaliving. That's like the double speak that exists in 1984. They try to eliminate people's words that they can use, but we're not going to do that here. That's just they commit suicide. And so, if you want to stand up for this community, I have a lot of respect for that. But with specifically with Kamala, when they were asking her about whether or not she would make um, sex change options available for prisoners or illegal immigrants, she answered in like I think one of the most dishonest ways possible, just by saying, "Well, I'm going to follow the law." Well, that's begging the question because we're asking you like, what are you going to support in being in the law? So that's dancing around like one of the worst ways I've ever heard. So I do want to get your opinions on her not taking, not so much. Well, you can talk about the trans issue in particular, but the the question I'm more specifically interested in why she wasn't willing to take more of a just say what your opinion is on this topic, Mitch.
It's a very hot button topic, and there's a lot of bigotry towards people, specifically the people who are trans right now. So she probably wanted to avoid answering any kind of specific question one way or the other,
Mm,
which is again kind of gets into the problem I have with her in the first place of
mm,
finger in the
mm-hmm,
wind.
Hmm.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah, she should have some backbone and take a stand for it. I mean, she just comes off as a very fake sort of candidate for me. Just a normal politician. Nothing really special. Nothing really outstanding as far as I'm concerned.
Not
But
her
is there
laugh
some?
though. Her laugh is very real. I
Yeah,
just do
that
want to throw
that's
that.
outstanding.
What-
Yeah, that cackle.
I'm
No,
sorry,
that's
Scott.
go ahead.
I'm
You're
sorry,
done.
Scott. I violated my own rule about interrupting, but I had to throw that in about
That's
how
right.
real that laugh is because that it's legitimate.
But you know
Scott.
what though? As far as the trans whole thing goes, and I've been doing recording some shows with Katie on her channel,
Hmm.
and we've been interviewing people who are for and against it, been making arguments, and so we've been going through this with people here lately. And one of the things that it all comes down to is what your particular values are. You know, that's really what it comes down to. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't really bother me one way or the other what people want to do with their bodies. If they're adults, that's fine. Now, if they're kids, I think it should be the last resort, but I think it should be held, it should be left up to a doctor, a professional, and the parent. You know,
Okay,
mistakes will be made, I'm sure, but I think that just saying across the board it's not a good solution at all ever, I think is a little dogmatic, and you're not really thinking at that point. I think that doctors are more in the know to make such decisions, not the government.
hold on, Scott. Although I completely agree with everything that you just said right now, and just for the record, Katie is a transgender woman herself from the UK.
Hmm.
So Scott is it's good to have the discussions to be able to flesh them out, as they say. But um, the issue, though, with me particularly, because I do agree with that, but on the other side, it's like the other side of this that people don't really discuss as much is that for every transgender surgery that you're doing on someone, you're taking away from, uh, you know, time from a doctor who could be potentially doing a surgery that could save someone's, like, immediately save someone's life. And I do get the argument that some of these people might opt themselves in the future, if they're not allowed to live this way. And I do believe that there's some validity in that.
A lot of validity.
Maybe not as much as the left wing says, but there definitely is some validity to that. So we got to be sensitive in talking about this. But on the other side of that, um, you're if you're gonna like, okay, let me ask. I'll ask you this. Ask you this right here, mate. You have a situation right now. A woman has breast cancer. A cis woman, biological woman, has breast cancer, and a trans woman would like to get breast implants. Like, where do you put your priority about who's going to get the surgery first in this situation? I'll
In
ask
that
you.
in that particular situation, if we're
Right.
doing a triage kind of that situation, yeah, the breast cancer goes first, and then the trans person and can get their surgery. In fact, though I have known, I do personally know one trans man who had their breasts removed, and it turned out to be a good thing because they actually found breast cancer beginning to develop up, and they would have had to do it anyway. And the whole issue of kids, well, that kind of depends on what we're referring to as a kid, because they don't really do surgeries on kids, as in younger and scarce. For that, you're looking at social transitioning and calling him Susie instead of Tom, having him letting him to wear a dress, seeing if that
Isabel,
doesn't.
I'll go
If,
by Isabel.
okay, Isabel.
Okay,
Well,
not much.
if it turns out it doesn't work for them, we'll start calling you Tom again, and no big deal. Well, in very rare cases where they do have surgeries under the age of 18, it's usually around like 17, just before 18. And these are situations where they've gone through psychologists, doctors. They've talked it over quite a bit. So there isn't just okay. Oh Tom wants to be a girl. Let's go take him to gender assignment surgery and get his dick chopped off. No, that's not how it works.
Johnson,
So,
child friendly. Johnson. Let's go with Johnson. Okay. Okay. So, okay. So you're okay. So then I do want to ask you another question related specifically that she was asked, but you have a transgender inmate, okay? And I made this very known. Scott knows I've made this known that, like, if you have a trans woman, it would be extremely immoral to put her into a male prison amongst males. That is absolutely, I for 100% could never support something like that. But on the flip side of that, I could never support this trans woman being put amongst cis women who could potentially be abused by her. So there's like has to be some kind of middle ground here where this person is being treated with dignity, with respect, but you have to recognize on the other hand, like, there is potential for abuse on either one of these sides. Would you agree with that?
mm, yeah, I mean, you put the trans woman in the male prison, she's like likely going to get raped. If you put her in the women's prison, then there's a possibility she's going to be doing the raping.
Possibility.
Yeah.
So it's like either one. Even if you were to put her among in the male prison, uh, you would have to, in my opinion, you would have to make the accommodations to be able to either have like a colony where it's just trans people, or just in like a administrative segregation to where they're not amongst the general population, because that just would be very dangerous.
Mm.
Either side you want to go on. So
Extra
I,
security to watch them, perhaps, sort of like how you have with the suicide watch.
no, just administrative segregation. It would sometimes be if there's a really violent person, but it's like you don't allow them to, example, have a cellmate, okay? Um, and they have to have. I'm very much against locking people up just like in a room all day long. So you have to make some kind of time where there can be some kind of interaction and they're outside. other than just an hour walking around in a yard. I really like Norway's example where they're basically have a campus and they have their own rooms and like they're able to come and go out of these rooms and they're able to have a degree of freedom. Um, you know, I think that's a much better way to rehabilitate people than locking them in a room all day. Like that to me is really inhumane. But I'm just saying there has to be you have to make provisions to where there's not going to be abuse on either side. But
I can agree with that.
of course, it's
Well,
me saying. Of course, you're going to agree with me. All my answers are the best. I have the best answers. I
you have
have
the
the
best
best
answers.
words.
Use the best words. Um,
But Scott,
well, I think that you're a very empathetic person. And unfortunately, in my experience in America, most people are just throw them in jail, throw away the
hmm
key. Who gives a crap about these people?
hmm
That's that's kind of the attitude people have, and so I don't think anything's really going to change on that from the status quo. Like I don't think they really care. The only thing that I think who would come out of the woodwork would be the conservative far right
hmm
people, because what they're going to say is, look, this is proof that we don't need to you know take special precautions with people that have this trans identity issue. They're going to be like, well, these guys are fakes. All this stuff is just beliefs, it's just
hmm
delusions, and why do we have to pay for it? Why do we have to make special provisions for them in jail? If they want to get raped, let them get raped. Who cares? If they want to rape them, rape other people. Who cares? They're criminals. That's why we put them there, so that stuff like that would happen. I've talked to people like that who's actually said that when I try to come up
Wow.
with these more empathetic sort of solutions,
Wow.
they're like, well, that's because you're soft on crime. You sound like a lawyer. You sound like someone who's trying to make excuses for the criminal. What about the victim? What about the victims
Right.
of the crime? Why don't you ever worry what happens to them? Who cares what these people happens to them in prison? You know what I mean? That's the
Yeah.
attitude they have.
I do. This is a side point. I do want to get back to specifically the issue with Kamala, but I do want to say something though, because as empathetic as I am, you take someone like you guys ever heard of the Dnipropetrovsk maniacs in Ukraine?
Mm-mm.
Um, these guys are just making some of the most. I mean, they did the whole killing a woman and cutting the baby out of her too. These guys are just like the absolute maniacs. They're out filming it and putting it on video and just laughing it like the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people like this, like in Russia, and when they catch these people, specifically in Russia, and this might be like the only time I would ever think that it's okay to do this to people in situations like this that I'm explaining to you. But in Russia, when they catch them and they're in prison and they're like very, very heinous crimes like this, or like
Mm-hmm.
what they'll do is they put them. They actually do have roommates, but they they put them basically on an island in the middle of like Siberia, which freaking freezing. Just it completely. If you've never lived in that kind of weather, it is living in that weather alone is practically a death sentence, man. South Korea gets freezing here, man. It is you'd sometimes just rather die than to be living in that freezing when it gets that cold, like
Mm.
way below minus. But anyway, and what they do is they basically just force the guys to stand up the entire day. They can't sit down, they can't lay down, and they can't talk. And it is like, I mean, I think if you got put in that situation, you would prefer to just die than to spend out years just standing there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if
Uh,
they try to go to sleep or they try to sit down, they'll come in and they'll beat them up and stuff. So um, that is a little bit. Hold on, but I do want to get to specifically what I was asking about this because, Mage, can you give me your thoughts on? Do you think that taxpayer? See if you can actually answer the question, unlike Kamala. But should taxpayers be supporting not illegal immigrants or prisoners to have sex reassignment surgeries?
Sure.
Please.
Yeah, it's like, yes, he probably he You should. Matter of fact, I think we should probably have. Well, I think we should have a universal healthcare system anyway that's paid through by taxes to begin with. So,
Okay, that's another issue. But I'm talking about someone's in prison. They've killed or they raped someone, and or they've done something. Should the taxpayers go to
well,
providing that?
well, in my opinion, I think in prison should be reserved should be an attempt to rehabilitate first and foremost. So for those who really can't be rehabilitated, it should be studied so we can find out what makes them tick
Hmm.
and look for those signs in other people
Hmm.
before they become that. But instead, in the U.S., we have for-profit prisons, so it's all made just to make money
Yep.
off of these guys, and essentially, it's effectively illegalized slavery in there.
Hmm.
Hold on, Kamala. I'm asking you a question. Should they be allowed to have it? You're sounding like
I
Kamala right
said
now.
yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Good. Maybe I didn't catch. Okay. Good. Well, at least I appreciate you presenting that side and that. I disagree with that, but I really appreciate you presenting that side. So thank you very much for that. Um, in my opinion, like they should definitely be provided the the minimum. Should definitely be provided the what you need to survive. But because
I,
I have hold on, I have because I have been to places like North Korea and Haiti where people don't have access to basic like health saving man like life saving. I'll just tell you one thing and then I'll move on after this, man. But like in Haiti, I woke up one day at an orphanage to what I sounded like an exorcism was taking place, man. And I went outside. Oh God, this is so horrible. But one of these boys, I guess, had a growth growing up on his shoulder or arm or something. And the way that they handled it there, because they didn't have money and medicine and stuff, they basically just held him down and just popped that thing, man. And this guy was screaming. Oh God, it was horrible. So, because I have seen some, places that are really impoverished who aren't having access to proper medical care. So, in my opinion, like we have to take care of the legitimate physical growth. Thank you again, Purple. Thank you for giving your opinion. Really appreciate it.
yeah, that's actually something I wanted to say here. Yeah, with the gender affirming care would be part of the real rehabilitation because you need
Okay,
to deal with the mental health and that's part of dealing with the mental health that the person has.
the gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, thank you. Really appreciate you giving your opinion on that. I've made my opinion known. I do want to go on to the next topic, but in my opinion, the people who have the physical problems that are causing either physical, either immediate physical pain or danger to them, that needs to be the priority. And until we solve that one, then the additional things that might be more psychological based, that should not be the priority right now. Let's go on to immigration now. And you guys are talking about something like open borders. So, May, what was your thought on that?
Oh, I'm not actually in favor of full open borders. I do think we do need to have borders. I mean, those what's the point? But as we mentioned, in the pathway to citizenship is definitely in what we need as well. Actually, in the U.S., we're one of the strictest when it comes to that. Of really just about any of other countries.
Let me ask. Um, let's say you could bring in someone who wasn't at all wealthy. There's a person who's just at the border. Um, he wasn't wealthy. Maybe had a criminal, or maybe didn't. You didn't know his criminal background. You didn't know anything about the guy, right? And you could choose between him and let's say another immigrant at the same port of entry. This person had a lot of money. This person wanted to start businesses in America. He had a clean record. These are two extreme cases that I'm building up here. Which one of these would you favor coming in first?
Well, obviously the one and who wants to create prosperity in the
Interesting.
country.
Interesting.
However,
I.
Hold
however,
on.
Mm-hmm.
The one who's not an atheist. I want the Christians coming here. Sorry.
There
Go
you
ahead.
go.
However, we have the low-level manual jobs. We've tried to kick out these low-level immigrants, and that actually became detrimental because we couldn't find any people to fill the job in the country. Even when we offered significant pay to do these jobs, we just can't get them filled.
So the point that I was getting at was that the background checks. We were talking about making it hard or making it easy on the immigrants to become a citizen. So we kind of looked at that with that question, and it looks like most people are in favor of, yeah, the guy that's going to bring prosperity to the country with his money and his entrepreneurship would probably be the one you would be the ideal immigrant, rather than the one who had nothing to offer. You didn't know anything about his background. You didn't know whether he had a criminal background, what have you. Now, the funny thing is, speaking to a lot of progressives, a lot of folks do not want the rich person in. They want the poor person. They don't know his criminal background, anything like that.
Really?
I think they're saying that to save face, because these are the same people that are arguing for, let's make it really easy for people to get in the country. They also argue rich people are the cause of a lot of our problems in America.
Mm,
Um, and so they would much rather feel safer with a poor person or someone they don't really know much about coming into the country, rather
wow.
than a rich person who has a lot to offer
Wow.
to the country. And I think this tells you a little bit about the mentality of such people. It seems like there's some kind of resentment of the wealthy class. There's this narrative that the wealthy are evil and the poor are good, and that there should be open borders. Essentially, I think that's, if you really press them, if you really push it, that's kind of what they're telling you right there. You don't know anything about the person, yet you'd want him in first before a person who is completely vetted and actually showed himself to be more valuable to the country. That kind of says it all to me.
So there's a lot of different sides to this, but I do want to say it, one of the most amazing things, and I write about this in my upcoming book about racism. But when I was in Belgium and I was going into Germany, and there's these old stations, these old like border control stations that are just they're just abandoned, and you see them and you're like, wow, like if that was a few years ago, I would have been held up here for maybe a couple of hours here trying to cross the borders. And okay,
Hmm.
this hold on,
well,
hold on, hold on, hold on. I'm going to talk about this one right here. This is extremely dangerous right here. But purple is advocating for here. But uh, so anyway, the point being is that you're able to cross these borders amongst the EU, but from like what she's saying, some of these people don't have IDs or whatever. Well, that's not really your fault. That's not really your problem if someone doesn't have an ID from their own country. The reason why this is possible in the EU is because every country is vetting the people as they're crossing into the borders, and then once they get in the borders, they can move them amongst the in the country. So this is very important because who knows? There might be a serial killer. There
I
might
got
be
something
some.
to add.
Definitely not what I mean. This is you could have terrorists popping into your country. You could have people carrying drugs. I mean, this is a very real thing.
I do have something to add. A lot of the undocumented immigrants, or if you prefer illegal immigrants, coming in and actually do come in here illegally on visas, as in the visas expire, and that's how they end up here in the first place.
That's irrelevant. That's
That's the
irrelevant.
major. That, well, it is relevant because that's
No,
where the
it's not.
majority of them are coming from.
That's irrelevant. Hold on. That's a completely separate issue, though, Mage. What we're talking about is people entering your country in the first place, because that's
That's
a other issue
well, I am talking about that.
we can talk about that all together.
Well, I
That's
am talking about that. That's how a lot of them are entering the country.
sorry. Continue. My alarm
Yeah,
is going off right now.
the majority of them are entering legally, and then they're becoming undocumented from becoming illegal and having to hide it afterwards. That's how the majority are getting in the first place, rather than just going through the border, or where which is usually how it gets it's painted. It is of them as the majority of them going through the border. And as for the and while we're on the whole border thing, the whole border crisis that came up under Biden, where we had a huge influx. I'm guessing that probably had more to do with the end of the pandemic than anything else. Seeing as you probably had a lot of people, staying at home, trying not really crossing borders and all that, and then after that, you basically had that backlog come in.
Hmm.
So that probably would have happened even if Trump had gotten his second term.
Well, it just seems like it's obviously opening up a risk. I mean, what do they say? Like, although around like, was it 850 million people in the world really don't have any sort of essential form of official identification. And that's not to say that the other 7 billion people around the globe have good IDs, by the way. So good ID is inclusive, trusted, verifiable, you know what I mean? Um, and that's not to say, so there's plenty of people that don't have ID. There's no way to really, verify who they are. And then, and so the question comes up, so are we going to leave them out of the country because they don't have ID? Well, I mean, this can be a ploy by terrorists to come into the
Exactly.
country and kill us.
Though
What do you think about that?
it's also probably worth noting that both documented and undocumented immigrants tend to commit crime at a lesser degree than natural born people. I know that's bad. I know that's a pretty common. That's just a lefty argument, because we can
It's
stop it altogether.
irrelevant.
That's because I know they're trying to argue it's irrelevant,
Yeah.
because we can stop it altogether by just having him kicked out.
But okay, okay, so mate, I am an immigrant myself. I live in South Korea. Okay, I have had to spend thousands of dollars and spent weeks of paperwork of going outside of the country, trips to embassies, waiting in line, and and I completely respect that South Korea does this to vet the people who are coming into their country, and they make you follow rules and they make you pay. I've had to pay fines and I've been given exit orders and stuff. So it's a process you have to go through to make sure that people aren't just freely entering your country, and you can't
Yeah,
just assume. Hold on. You can't just assume that everybody has good intentions to entering in your country. Because here in South Korea, as I talked a little bit about the population crisis, they have to import a lot of their manufacturing workforce. Um, Again, these aren't even about purple. This isn't even a relevant point. This is
well,
completely irrelevant.
it is a relevant point when we're arguing. Well, these people could be terrorists. These people could be criminals. Yada yada yada. So the fact that we're seeing less crime from the people who actually do get
But that,
into the country is relevant.
okay, if only
Mm,
one hold on, if only one of them was going to do a crime, that is still
you've added.
irrelevant. It doesn't matter how many. It doesn't matter
No,
We
if
it does
half
matter
is it.
well,
if we're going if we're arguing.
we can grant that most of your crime and terrorism happens by like right wing extremists in this
Hmm.
country, right?
Hmm.
We can grant that, and then we can say, oh, well, since that's the case, let's just bring more of those people in because who cares? We're doing most of it anyways. Does that really make sense?
It
To me,
doesn't. It makes
it sounds like whataboutism,
yeah
and it doesn't really address the issue. The issue is there should be a policy in place, even if none of the immigrants are going to be terrorists and doing it.
yeah.
There should always still be
I
a
know.
right way to do
And I
things. Like
agreed with that.
my ex-wife, or actually, yeah, my ex-wife, she was an immigrant from Kenya, and it took us years to get her
Hmm.
over here with the right paperwork in place and
Hmm.
everything before she get in. And so she sort of feels some kind of way about illegals. So do a lot of my Latino friends in California and people like that. They feel some kind of way because they understand the
Latinx,
process.
Latinx, Latin.
Yeah,
You're
the
being
Latin.
racist right now,
That's
Scotty.
right. Hey, man,
You bigot.
I know. But I mean, it's
Uh,
true. A lot of people, a lot of immigrants feel some kind of way about the fact that they had to go through the process, yet these other people get to skip lines and come in. I mean, if you want to make that argument, that would be like a whataboutism you could talk about, but we never do that because that's kind of beside the point. The point is, regardless, everybody should have, in an ideal world, the ideal should be that there's just a clean way that people could come into the country. But I admit there's a lot of nuance to it. There's no simple solution, and I'm open minded to it.
But when we argue the whole criminal thing, it tends to become too much of a broad brush where you start arguing, well, they're all criminals, and so we start looking at them in that general
No,
perception overall.
no,
That does
that
happen. That particular does happen with
that is
particular in the
hold on,
right.
but mate, that is just gaslighting right there, man. That is we got to have a better conversation. Or this one I hear saying illegal. Okay, let's call them unauthorized residents. Okay, if you're getting caught up on the
Semantics, yeah.
yeah,
Undocumented we could use.
Undocumented,
a
yeah.
document. Okay, now I will grant I would love to see because this would actually benefit me a lot if we're able to streamline stuff and to make things easier to do. For example, in South Korea, if you want to get this visa, if you want to get this visa updated, you actually got to go to another country and go to the embassy there to get your. They give you like a an invitation number, and you have to. So you have to exit the country. It takes days to do, man. I've had to do it at least 3 times myself. They won't just let you do it inside of South Korea. So there's lots of things like that, or just finding ways to make as much stuff online as possible. Because especially like in COVID, during COVID, there people were trying to do a lot more things remotely. So I would be totally up for that. Especially now we have AI to try to help us out with that. So I do agree that, and I do genuinely believe that people should be out traveling. And in my own personal opinion, we should be swapping citizens out every couple of years, so everyone gets a chance to explore. And it's one of the ways I think is strongest in racism is to be out
Yeah.
interacting with people. But that being said, though, I mean, you wouldn't allow someone. I mean, imagine you just came home one day, Scott, and someone is just sitting there at your table, and they're like, "Yeah, trust me, I'm a really good person. I just want to work here." You would want to know who the fuck that person is, man. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing racist. There's nothing that should be demonized about that. But I do want to go and we'll talk about the last topic for the day, which is going to be Palestine,
Mm.
because in fact, my brother is he's so left wing he won't even vote Democrat anymore. He's kind of just fallen off. I mean, but like this is not an exaggeration. But to him,
Excuse me.
the Democrats are just an extension of the Republican Party.
I wouldn't call
So
them an extension, but I
I,
would
I'm
say
t-
they're center right.
I I don't agree. I'm just telling you his opinion. Okay, I'm not saying this is my opinion because I'm middle of the road here, Mage. Because I think either side, first of all, either sides have good points and either side has bad points as well. So there's that. Two, what I've made it known is that if you choose one side, you're going to wind up doing a couple of things here, either unintentionally or just you just have to do this. Like the Republicans, they'll overlook stuff about Trump, and then they're going to turn around and talk about, like, for example, he's had all these cheating on his wife, babies outside of wedlock, et cetera, sex with porn stars, and then they're going to turn around and criticize Kamala Harris for wearing a dress that's really low
Mm-hmm.
cut or whatever. So it's like you have to wind up compromising your values
Mm-hmm.
and overlooking things that are being done on your own side that are either to a worse extent or to the same extent of your own side. So there's that. And then two, it's like, yeah, you have to engage in some pretty severe cognitive dissonance. And for me, not choosing a side, I get to sit right in the middle and say, both of you guys have some good sides, both of you guys have some bad sides. But I'm certainly not going to put my neck out on the line for a politician. I'm not going to stop breaking bread with my Christian brothers or sisters or my actual brothers and sisters because they have a position I disagree with. I'm not going to do that, and I know plenty of people who are doing it. My own cousin Scott, you know this. I've had to block my own cousin because he's
Mm-hmm.
attacking me because I wasn't supporting Donald Trump, even
Right.
though I said I'm not supporting Harris. You couldn't pay me enough money to support Harris, but you also couldn't pay me to support Trump as well. I don't care
Right.
what you offer me. I'm not going to support either of these candidates. You could try to intimidate me. You could gaslight me. I'm not going to do it. So, anyway, sorry, that's a side point. The point is, what are your thoughts on why everyone is, if the people who don't want to support her, it seems the number one thing they've been talking about is her support of a quote unquote Palestinian genocide. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So,
Oh, hold on. That was for me. That was for me. That's
oh,
for me.
go ahead, Mage.
The Palestinian genocide. Boy, yeah, that's a big issue with Harris. Though on the Trump side, he said
Well, I'm not talking
Netanyahu
about
needs.
Trump. I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about Harris. Don't mention Trump. Harris. You're pulling another Harris right now. Harris.
Yeah.
I said that's a big issue with her. He's supporting the genocide. Though, like I said, on the Trump side, he's already said that uh, uh, Netanyahu needs to finish the job. So he's also in support, and perhaps even more so.
Okay, but what do you mean that she's supporting it? Like, can you elaborate on this?
She's taking the same position in that Biden into look, and
True.
he's already been pro support, except for he just kind of wags his finger and says you shouldn't do that. So basically, his big thing is to send him a strongly worded letter with the next shipment of weapons,
So,
and it looks like Harris is going to continue that trend.
so you believe that she should be more vocal about it, or she should just say, "I'm not going to get involved." Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, we know in past situations where there were certain where Israel was starting to overstep things like they have. It took one phone call from the president to end it. So if she got on the president, she could end it. She could just say, "We're not sending you any more weapons," flat out. That would end it right there because their whole thing is being supported by our weapons. The only reason why they can continue doing this is because of our weapons. So if you just said, "We're not sending you any more weapons until you decide you need to knock this off," that'll end it.
Okay. By the way, Purple, can you please elaborate on what you mean by that? Or if you liked, you can also come on to discuss it. But okay. Scott, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah. Like overall, like with that situation, on one hand, I can say when it comes to wars and the insider stuff, we don't know what's really going on. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
access to any intelligence, or we don't really know what the purpose is or what's really happening. We're kind of we're kind of just news is feeding us, and we don't really know. Being said, though, if what if what is being represented to us is true, it seems really over the top when Israel is just blocking, just cornering Palestinian citizens in somewhere and just killing them like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that part, I don't understand, and I don't. I find it hard to believe they're really doing stuff like that. But if they are, what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I supposed to say? Of
Yeah.
course,
What do
it's
you?
wrong,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, on the other hand, Hamas, they're a terrorist organization. They need to be fucking destroyed. Israel has every right to defend themselves from Iran, from everybody else who's attacking them. They have that right, and I support that right. And I think at the end of the day, though, it would be the world would be a better place without terrorist organizations like Hamas. On the other hand, I don't think it's the world would be a better place when you have countries just blocking citizens into buildings and hospitals and just killing them unmercifully for no reason. I don't understand that either. So this whole thing is just kind of weird and really beyond my comprehension, if you ask me.
I do want to elaborate something. First of all, what is happening in Palestine is not a genocide. That was for the sake of brevity for what people are referring to as.
I call it a
I
genocide.
what?
I call it a genocide.
Okay, but that we could have that discussion. But I'm saying the only reason why I refer to it as a genocide, I mean it's not, but I was just saying this is what is coming out of the left, the left wing side of things. And see, the thing is, I've actually spent a week down in Palestine learning about Islam from the Muslims there. Some of the nicest, most kind, gentle, accommodating people I've ever met in my life, and I say that with a totally straight face. Um, so, and just a funny side story. It's kind of just this is going to get a little bit heated right now, but I was having some tea and bread with these guys, and I guess we were smoking hashish. I think that's what we were smoking together. But as we're right here, off to the side, I see a guy pick up an axe, and he starts making his way behind me. And I swear, I see this guy walking in slow motion, and I'm thinking in my mind, like I'm an atheist at this time, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, if there's a God out there, please accept my soul kindly, because I'm about to die right now. And this dude picks up this axe right behind me, just starts chopping wood and adds it to the fire and goes about his business. But yeah, those guys are extremely nice, extremely hospitable there. It's a very unfortunate situation because here's another side in which I take a middle position. Like people say, are you pro Palestine or pro Israel? Neither. I'm pro human. I'm pro people's rights. And so whenever you take either position, either it's from Israel or if it's from Palestine, you wind up overlooking a lot of shit they're doing, a lot of really fucked up stuff that they're doing on either side, and it's horrible. It is what's taking place there is, I mean, as a Christian, I could say you have to put a lot of this down to the Bible and what Christians believe is actually happened in this land whenever the forming of this land is done by an actual genocide. What the Bible describes as an actual genocide. What's taking place there is not genocide, but what God commands in the Bible is actual genocide. And so that's a just if that's what that legitimately happened, um, that's been thousands of years of bad blood that's been sowed there. So I think the only way to end the you know redemptive violence is by you got to at some point say we got to forget what's happened in the past and we got to go to the future.
Yeah.
So, but it seems like either side are willing to justify shit that is like, and I don't care. Someone say you're a Christian, you're saying fuck, man. This is some fucked up stuff that's happening down there. I mean, this is bad. As she said, referring to how do you call it? Bombing hospitals. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that that's happening. So yeah,
I
you want
saw
to
a
hop on a comment?
video. I saw a video of an ambulance that got bombed, and a bit of the bomb that was still left intact had U.S. on it. It was our bomb that we you gave them that bombed that ambulance. That's a war crime, by the way.
Mm.
Well, you'd have to prove that was intentional.
It
That's
was
another.
intentional. I've watched videos where they intentionally targeted ambulances.
Yeah, but
Got,
what videos on YouTube?
Uh, mostly I've been seeing them on Twitter X from the Euromed monitor.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's just for me. I'm only speaking for myself. It's really hard for me to make heads or tails of stuff like. That's why I'm so agnostic on so many things because I realize just how limited I am with awareness about a whole lot of stuff, right? So it's really hard for me to be too hardcore for or against really anything. But I do
hmm
know one thing: it's always wrong to kill women and children in hospitals for no reason.
hmm
That's an obvious immoral thing according to my values. So
Unless they're atheists, that might be
yeah, if they're
the one
atheists,
exception.
they deserve it because they asked for it. But other than that, these are
Hey, we're
Muslims.
already demonetized at this point, so just
Yeah.
who cares? Let's just throw the mud in the wall.
Yeah, we
As soon as
might
I
as
got
well.
here, it was demonetized.
I
Yeah.
know.
No.
Hey, but either way, though, I just want to say thank you to both of you. Like, really, it means a lot to me, both of you guys being here. Um, yeah,
Yep.
having this, trying to flesh some stuff out, even if we can't agree, on stuff, to be able to have the discussion, it means a lot to me.
Yeah, Israel attacked every hospital And if they continue to blow up all these hospitals, they're going to be nowhere get medical help, and they're going to die. And that would result in a genocide in a way. And I don't know. I don't know what the thinking is. You have to understand the culture of the Middle East too. Like, I'm sure Hamas would love to do genocide on Israel too.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that, the stronger you are, the more cruel you are, even from antiquity all the way up till today in the Middle East, the more cruel you are as a leader, the more tyrannical you are as a government, the more you're respected by other countries, the more you profit. So they're in this thing goes back thousands of years, man.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can
Yeah,
say or
uh,
do that's going to really
It,
change their culture, man.
I do want to end off with one thing with this, and we'll get into closing parts. But Mage and Purple, if Israel wanted to commit a genocide on Palestine, there wouldn't be any Palestinians left. Let's just say that.
True.
If that's what
well,
their
that's what we're
actual,
working towards.
if that was their actual intention, that's what would happen. Now, what you have in places like Rwanda, which are actual genocides, is you're trying to kill every last person in this race or religion, whatever, in a certain area, and that is just simply not true. I mean, you have they've done some mess up stuff. I'm not going to support it. I positively will not sit here and try to defend everything Israel does, because I'm not like a biblical literalist as far as a lot of this stuff goes. First of all, and second of all, as a humanitarian, it's like a lot of stuff that they're doing is messed up. It just there's no other way around it to say that. You know, I, I was talking about crossing the borders from Germany
Mhm.
to Belgium, and, and that's if I would love to see a world in which the Palestinians had the same kind of where they can move around, and Israel also didn't have to worry about themselves getting blown up. Like if I could wave a wand, that would be the world that we inhabit. But the reality is, though, this is just a brutal reality: is that there's plenty, and not all of them, there's plenty of people inside of Palestine who want an actual genocide of the Israeli people. As in, there's not a single one of them left, not even one. So, I mean, that's just a reality. Whenever you have this situation, people who actually want a genocide where there's not going to be anyone alive, how are you going to have a civilized society whenever there's people like this who are inside of your borders, and that's a tough situation right there. And I'm not going to say I have all the answers to that, but I do want to let's just get it to last closing thoughts. And yeah, if you have any last closing thoughts or remarks on this.
Go ahead,
You've already
Mage.
Well, I'm just looking
made to the minute.
at some numbers here. 10% of the population has been either killed, injured, or missing. That's 50,292. It's probably even higher than that, just from what they can count. Uh, it breaks down to Ministry of Health records 41,900 civilians and 45,155. So that's way more than just Hamas. 16,577 in children and 10,488 women.
So a lot of dead Palestinian civilians.
33% being children.
Yep.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, it's messed up. Well, my last thoughts on the whole topic here, um, it's kind of like what we said. Harris is not really saying anything that seems like it's going to solve any of these issues. She doesn't say what she's going to do about immigration, what she'll do, except for the same thing that Biden's been doing, maybe. As far as Palestine, Israel, I don't think she's really come up with a solution for that either. I haven't heard her say anything
Hmm.
about what she's going to do about that either.
Right, right.
Um, it's just a lot of things that we don't know, but we do know that Kamala bends to the wind. She tends to support fracking when it's convenient. She supports legalizing marijuana when it's convenient, but before it was convenient, she was locking people up, or she was vocal against fracking, or whatever the case is. So we know that she's kind of flaky, at least in my opinion, she's sort of flaky and a typical politician. Nothing special, nothing especially bad about her, I would say, but just your run of the mill, kind of politician. Trump, at least we know what he's going to do, but I feel like he's disqualified himself from the race a long time ago. He
Mhm.
tried to overthrow the frickin' election. That's number one thing. That ends it right there for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then he lies all the time. Well, they all lie, but he just blatantly lies. But who cares? It's all lies anyways. But and he's just not very coherent in his speech. He never says anything of substance. It's always bragging and braggadocious, and that's the kind of president he is. So we know at least what to expect. On the other hand, he was stronger on immigration than Biden was. Not as strong as Obama was, but stronger, at least stronger than Biden. So I'll give him that.
No, he
Um,
wasn't.
you don't think? Oh, so you think Biden was stronger on immigration than
Biden in,
Trump?
Biden deported more people than in Trump.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay. I'll have to look that up. I didn't know that. At
Well,
least
both as
so
a
let
raw
me let me
number and as a statistic. As the
let me change my statement then. I would say that the perception in this country is that Trump was stronger on immigration than Harris or Biden. That's the perception. At least that's what I hear in the news all the time. Um, so that's what's gonna that if I'm telling you, people go by their values. If people value immigration like they're anti-immigration and that's what they value, Trump's in, man. But if you're someone abortion legalized and you do a lot of these other things that Trump, then she's the one. But I don't know, man. I just feel like Trump disqualified himself, so he's out for me. And Harris, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what she's gonna do that's any different, but maybe maybe she's the lesser of the two evils. I don't know. I think maybe that's the case, eh? Because if you value, a woman's right to choose, which I do, and stuff like and legalizing marijuana, I think Harris would probably be the lesser of the two
Ah,
evils.
so you're anti-life. I see.
Well, given
That's all
the
I had to say.
choice,
You're anti-life.
given the choice between the person who we know will try and stay in there or once he's in there permanently versus somebody will just allow the system to keep going in the way it's been going.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just yeah.
Okay. By the way, someone said Waltz for president. No, I say Mage for president, 2028, and all wolves' lives matter. That's my other.
Hmm.
I'm sticking to that point right there. Hashtag Mage for president. But Mage, you have any last ideas?
Well, if I was going to be president, I would definitely would be about as crass as Trump. But,
Mage, last
no,
ideas?
no, I think I'm good.
You good? Okay. Well, okay. I do want to end off with a little, excuse me, little speech. Prepare yourself for this one, Scott. No, no. You know what? It's kind of a like I remember whenever COVID hit, and my sister is a politician there in California, and I was seeing kind of some of their responses to what was going on, and I remember like seeing it from here from South Korea 'cause we took it a lot more seriously a lot earlier on, and it was just kind of like whoa, it just seemed like the end of the world, man. Like every last thing in your life that I enjoyed was just abruptly upended. And but the reality is though is that at least for now the republic survives, and God willing, there's going to be another 10 elections after this, hopefully. And I think we got to keep some kind of perspective in this because I have heard too many times, and I'm tired of hearing this. We have to stop saying this line that this is the most important election of your lifetime. Well, I've had about 6 or 7 elections in my lifetime that people have said this is the most important election of our lifetime. So that gets kind of old when you keep saying that line. And so I think be willing to. Kiki. Hold on, what does Kiki say? Vote Jill Stein, make America and the Earth green again. Amen to that. Amen to that one. But we are going to have more elections in the future, and so the Republic is not hanging on this one election. I might be actually in some weird circumstances, but I do want to say though that regardless of what happens, we have to continue to try to like empathize with each other because that is the third t- letter of this podcast is empathy because I think either side you start to take is that you can really start to not try to value the things that people are experiencing from the other side of the aisle. Like example, Purple, this is a transgender woman right here. She has perspectives that I'm just never going to understand as a cisgendered male person. So, and also being an atheist. So, I think each side has things that we can learn from and life experiences or factoids that could help us. So, as we sit and try to talk through some of these topics, and let's not lose fact of the sight that one hindsight is 2020. So, in the future, we'll have some better insight than we have right now. So, did you want to add something to that, Scott?
Yeah, I just
Oh no,
wanted
no, no,
to.
Scott! Don't interrupt me, Scott. Don't.
Yeah,
In
go
fact,
ahead. Go ahead.
you know what, Scott. I have to do this. Scott's done. Scott has been removed from this podcast permanently. Um, and I also muted his mic for good measure. He's out there in the distance, and so Scott, you've been Darth Docking for the second time now. But I do want to say, no, I gotta, I gotta add it back. But you guys have different. You guys are atheists. I'm a Christian. I'm probably a little bit more right of you two, but who knows? I am pretty close to the center. But still, though, either way, we're able to sit here and be able to have this conversation out and try to learn different things, see the different sides, and I do appreciate that. And I just would like to see more of this because the politicians, honestly, you trust those guys as far as you could throw them. I mean, this is why I am not gonna stop talking to my family or friends over some fucking politician. That's not gonna happen. That has 0% chance of happening. So remember who you're putting your trust in. These politicians, they're self-serving, and I learned this in college that the number one goal of any institution is to preserve the institution. And so the Democrats and the Republicans both have in their best interest to keep things the way that they are, status quo.
Hmm.
So if you understand that, like if you understand that these people are serving themselves and they want to help themselves in their own, their coffers and their own bank accounts, understand that off the top, and then we could start to have a little bit of centering about really what's going on here. But did you have anything else to say, Scott? I'm sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt you.
I was just gonna say. I did a little fact check on what I was saying about the Trump and the deportation and stuff, and I fact checked it, and this is coming from Center for Immigration Studies. That the Reuters report that Biden is deporting more illegal aliens than Trump is wrong.
Really?
Actually, yeah, it says Trump actually deported about close to 300,000 in 2019, and the most that Biden ever deported was 140. So more than half. So just something I wanted to put out there. And I always like to. I don't like to be spreading misinformation if possible and double check myself or whatever.
Uh, I do have to go though because it is
Okay.
Sunday morning, and I do not want
Yes.
my daughter to grow up to be an atheist cultist like you two.
Right.
So I do got to make sure she's getting to church. But seriously, thank you guys for your time. Mage,
Make
thank you
sure
so
she
much.
reads her Bible.
That's right.
I'm gonna Mage, I'm gonna send you out a gift card. So hopefully you like some coffee and yeah, thanks again, and leave you with this outro. And one more thing too, purple rhymes with orange. Thank you very much for your opinion. I really appreciate you expressing yourself, and we don't have to agree to. Um, ouch. Mage is
Mm.
trying to make her an atheist.
You see
Yeah, I mean,
that?
you know what? You know, just for good measure, I'm okay. Boot him out of there. He's got Darth too.
He's got to go.
Yeah, he's got to go. All right. All right. Mage, thanks a lot, man. Have a
Yeah.
good one, and don't ever come to South Korea, man. You might get eaten out here.
Yeah.
That's right.